Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of REI Behind the Scenes. Every Thursday, I host an episode of either REI Behind the Scenes or Transformation Time. My name is Lizarazo, and our guest speaker is Natasha Feghali. Today, our guest speakers are real estate investors. They're here to share their experiences with you so that you can learn from them. On REI Behind the Scenes, we're going to be going through the property, what the property was, what the strategy was they used, what the numbers were like, how the numbers went for them. And the best part of all that you guys all love is the problems they've encountered and how they solve them, and if it was something new, what they would do in the future to either stop it completely from happening or at least minimizing it. Because we all know as real estate investors, we can definitely never get rid of every single problem, but we can definitely be more aware and help and make our lives easier by just at least minimizing it from happening. So let's get Natasha on. Oh, is it coming? Accept. Okay, perfect. Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. I'm doing okay. It looks like actually it came off of my speakers, so that's good. Yeah, I'm doing fine, thank you. Yeah, so far so good.
Awesome. So let's get started with just telling the viewers a little bit about yourself. What kind of real estate investor are you? How much time you've been investing? Whatever you'd like to share with the audience.
So my name is Natasha Feghali. I'm originally from Windsor. I have a, I guess, small, medium size real estate corporation. We operate out of three provinces. Alberta, Moncton, New Brunswick, and Ontario, mainly Windsor, Ontario. And now we are getting involved in REITs. As of 2022, we started getting involved in REITs, and it has been quite a journey for real estate. I started in 2014, and I never really thought I'd get to this point, especially I put it in my manifestation to do REITs and lending for other investors. And you know very well, you know very well, Diana. It just kind of happened. It was kind of like power of attraction. We have bought and sold. Our main technique is to BRRRR properties, which is
Awesome.
buy,
And I think
renovate,
today
refinance.
oh, sorry, I think there's a bit of a delay. But yeah, you're saying BRRRR, and yeah, sorry. So BRRRR is, yeah, buy, renovate, refinance, repeat. I think I got all
Yeah,
of them, right? Yeah. Awesome.
yeah.
And so tell us which property are you going to talk about today? Do you want to just give us like, yeah, just tell us a little bit
Yes.
about it, like what did it look like, and what was your initial plans going in with it?
So in 2020, we bought this fixer-upper. I would say that it wasn't too bad. It actually didn't need much, but it was a house that myself and my partner were going to live in. And as you know, in 2020, there was a pandemic, and we were dead in the middle of renovations. The property, I possibly could have just pulled back and did a little bit of paint and then waited it out and just sold it. But we were like, pretty dead set that we were going to live there. Of course, we never lived there. We never moved in, and the project probably cost around 100,000 for the renovations and all the delays and all of the inflation and costs of everything, and then just the shutdowns. Um, It
So this
was
was
a
a house that you were always like nothing was going to be rented or anything, not even flipped, and then it just ended up turning into a bit of a flip.
well, I was going to flip it to myself, and we were going to rent out the basement, or turn it into a mother-in-law suite. However, that also got shut down. The project became a nightmare, actually. And we didn't make a profit on it. In hindsight, I should have just did a little bit of paint and a little bit of flooring and rented it. And even after it was done being fully renovated, I should not have sold it. If I could tell the viewers anything, is if you have a gut feeling to not sell, just burr it. Don't flip it.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
unfortunately,
so, but
my
your initial,
realtor,
sorry,
so
I was
yeah,
gonna just say that. So your plan was initially it was to you will live upstairs, you and your partner would live upstairs, and you would rent out the basement. And from what it seems like, it technically already had a basement apartment. You were just going to just do some finishing touches, was the plan?
that's exactly what was the plan, is we were just going to do finishing touches in the basement. Um, kind of like the basement was already done. There was already a finished basement there. So what
Mm-hmm.
I was doing is we were going to, yeah, just fix it up, repaint, etc. The city came in and said that we added the basement. And I was like, no, we didn't. And they were like, well, the original floor plans says that you have a basement. And I was like, the original floor plans are from 1910. Obviously, it's changed hands many times. So, you know, unfortunately, it got really hairy with the city. I did in the end, we did go forward. It like the project did go forward, but we couldn't put a partition wall. We had to just have a door so you could go downstairs, but that door would also lead to upstairs.
Mm-hmm. And so with that, so okay, so one of the problems was that it wasn't then, so it wasn't a legal basement apartment, and so
Yeah.
then you had to go through the whole legalization process. And so
Yeah.
with that process, what did you have to do? Like, did they make you remove walls, like completely remove, like what did you have to do?
Well, Diana, actually, they made us take all the drywall down. And to be fair, that drywall was there before. They made us take it all down, fireproof it with fireproof insulation. Everything had to be up to code. We had the studs were only like 2 inches, and we had to add another two so that they would be 4 inches. It was a catastrophe. So
Mhm.
by this point, we were just like, you know what? Let's just remodel all 3 floors. So that's what we did. We remodeled all 3 floors, and that's where the deal became extremely expensive. And then it just started, it started to spiral because that particular year of 2020 was just not,
Material costs were
yeah,
insane.
it just wasn't a good year. And then the contractor had COVID, and then he couldn't come, and then, all of his work got backtracked. So then we got backtracked. So a project that was supposed to last 3 or 4 months became 12 months.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, with the shutdowns. Yeah, sorry. 2020 was when all the shutdowns happened.
Yeah.
2021, I think, is when we started seeing a lot of the materials start to increase in value.
Oh
Um,
my God. Yeah.
yeah. So then you wanted to, yeah, renovate the whole property, the whole house. And so so your major delays were really that they couldn't come to the property, or were there any other things that were causing delays?
Yeah, there were a lot of delays, heating and cooling. So the other issue with old houses, I know that a lot of investors, they want to buy old houses. The problem is that all of the houses now, I would say, I only know in a Canadian landscape, is that some houses were built now, some were built in 2000, some were built in 1980, 1990, 1910. So they're all different codes. So what happens is when we took the walls down, there was asbestos behind the walls and the heating ducts were not going to every room. So we didn't have, like the airflow, we didn't have enough heating ducts. So everything, all the walls had to come down. Then, you have to get someone for asbestos. Then with the asbestos, they have to test it. So it just really became the work became delayed because every time we would go to do work, then we'd have to get another inspector to check. And so what happens is it started to spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And because, there's not enough ducts to go to every room, well then, you got to get a different AC. Like the AC unit has to be different. The HVAC has to be different. Then the plumbing as well. The plumbing wasn't, it wasn't, not copper, yes, piping. So, and then we wanted to add another bathroom. But the bathroom wasn't on the same line as the stack. So it just became catastrophic. I should have just painted the house and re-rented it. And then turned the garage into an ADU. Because actually the garage was the only thing that the city approved to be turned into an ADU. But the project just went too far.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that means so you opened up, so you did like a full gut job then on this property in the end.
Yeah, it was down to the studs. Like literally all 3 floors were down to the studs.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And
I
you
took
only,
out
and you said it was
closets.
and you said it was 100,000? Just 100,000?
The renovation was only 100,000. The contractor had worked on us for many jobs, many previous burrs. So we had a very good rate for labor. And he also was,
that's amazing
yeah,
for a full set.
basically
That's actually
it was the
amazing.
supplies that cost us.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, and
mm-hmm.
then I usually go on like Marketplace and I'll buy supplies off of other properties, like through wholesalers or because of where I live in Ontario, there's a lot of construction companies and a lot of construction out in the county areas. So I can get paint like barrels of like 5-gallon, like 5-liter gallons of paint or, for very, very cheap. And then I go on Marketplace and I buy like stuff off of Marketplace, doors and doorknobs and, even small stuff like door stoppers, light switches, just other people who are also doing renovations. And then I'll, paint them or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And for the contractor, he contracts his manpower also through like different government projects. So he's already getting he was getting like a subsidy. So the whole thing just worked out like really well in that way, but the project itself just didn't. And then when I went to sell the house, which again, don't ever sell, the market was already going downwards. So I'm lucky I got what I got for the property.
Mm-hmm. Wait, it was going down in what time? In 2021?
This was early 2021. So the market had already started to decline. Like it was already, the cooling was starting. And what people were getting on the same street, because the location was prime, what they were getting on the same street, like say for a 3-floor, 2-bed, 2-bath, 3-bedroom in-law suite in the basement, around $425, I could only sell it for $350.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I didn't know that. So Windsor, because this is in Windsor, this property,
This is
right?
in Windsor, yeah.
So in Windsor,
And I
it was
bought the
going
property
through a
for nothing.
downturn. Yeah. So in Windsor, then in 2021, the prices of houses actually were going down, but they were going down first before the rest because I felt like, let's say at least in the GTA, we started seeing the price of properties going down in 2022 is when we started to see that drop happening. So that's interesting. Windsor was kind of ahead of us in the drop.
Yeah, yeah. I think in Windsor, because it shooted up so high that it started to kind of cool off. And I think we're still seeing that cooling effect in the market. Properties that were going for previously, say 700, 750, like a bungalow, are now going for around 650, or, especially in area like well sought after areas.
And so for the property, when you so you guys so what made you decide to just want to sell it? And like you said, because you were selling at a loss, what made you decide that it was just like you just wanted to get rid of it? Was it just the stress? Like you're just like, I don't want to see this house ever again in my life, or
Yeah. Yeah, it was a whole combination. Like, I never want to see this property again. We had, then we ended up having a really big falling out with the contractor because he wasn't coming to do our job. He was so backed up and then taking on more and more work, and we were just falling behind. And I just got to the point where I said, you know what? Like, the emotions took over, whereas I should have used my rational business brain. The land was huge, double lot, huge driveway, great location, totally detached garage. I should have used, I really, and I have a mentor, and she also discouraged me from selling. However, the realtor really encouraged me to sell. And, I think I was so emotional because I was really just like, I've had it with this property. Every single thing has gone wrong. However, in hindsight now, I should have just been like, you know what? No, I'm going to refinance whatever I get out of the refinance I get, and then I'm going to rent this property because I know in the future it'll have a turnaround.
100%. And then so in this time when this was happening, was it like you just didn't want to deal with it at all anymore? Like, was this your first time dealing with this kind of big problems, and was this like a lot of firsts for you in like that, like big renovations and let's say kind of technically turning into, well, I guess you didn't really want it to be a flip, but like selling it, kind of technically flipping it? Were these like all firsts for you, some of these?
No, I've always had what I would call dumps. So none of this was a first. This was probably that was my second gut job. Like just right down to the studs, tear the whole house down and start again. Yeah.
And then, but so was it, let's say then the first job, or like I'm just curious on what was the factor that made it so much worse than, let's say, the first one? Was it just like the amount of problems were just like beyond, like you just didn't want to deal with anymore, or what was it?
I think that the issues with this property that made it worse, very difficult, is that the first property that we did a full renovation right down to the studs was timing, material costs, and organization. We bought the property, 3 months later, fully rented, everything was complete. In 2020, we bought the property, March, COVID, everything shut down. We couldn't get supplies, the contractor couldn't work, the job started delaying. Then, we had an issue with like a subcontractor, as I told you, the heating and cooling. Then, the city got involved, due to some faulty information that they were told that we were doing, just different things at the property, and then, adding an additional unit. So the issue is that we didn't look at the project for what it was, which was this should just be paint, flooring, a few new doors, but the garage was where the money was at. We looked at it as, oh, we're going to reflip this whole house and, you know, just rent out the garage to someone for their, you know, car on the side or whatever. Whereas the other property, we had a full plan. We're going to renovate this house and we're going to rent it, and there's nothing more that can be done. So we're just going to do our renovation and boom, boom, boom. So there, it's a whole combination: timing, pricing, the contractor delays, the idea. So all of that altogether led to the property being a flop.
Mm-hmm. And so that's interesting. So it was more like there were just so many changes happening. Because like that, I feel like COVID, that's completely new to us. And I feel like not only, you know, you're like that locked in and you're like in house jail, so that's already messing with our minds enough. But you're trying to work on like also your projects and like that same thing, the contractors themselves also figuring out this new way of being and like you said, the planning part. So it was more of, I think it was probably the planning that probably threw you off, the fact that it was like, this is what we're planning to do. And the shift was so much that it was just like that. It was just, and like you said, like, and it sounds like you got stuck in certain constraints, like because there was a unit downstairs, your focus was on maintaining that unit instead of, like you said, moving to the garage. So it's interesting. So it was just like a combination of things. And so what was like that? So then what made you decide to sell at a loss and be okay with it? And like that, because you said your mentor was the one that was like, you had like, you know, the angel and the devil, you know, like one telling you sell, the other one, no, don't do it.
Yeah. You know, my mentor kept saying, do not sell this property. I was so fed up. For 365 days, I went there every single day, taking garbage, cleaning, painting, everything. And I was so fed up, sick of it. And my emotions got the best of me, and I was like, put it on the market. I don't want to see it, and just try to get, this is the number we need to get to break even, so to speak. Although we didn't break even, we took a loss, but to break even, so to speak. And I just did. And now I look back and I'm like, what did I do? I know better. I'm not new to this at all, you know? I should not have sold it, and I did.
That's also a great point that you make, you know, actually, that, for example, like that, we can have experience in these kind of things. And, or let's say, I would say generally in the renovation side, because I feel like experience in the COVID side, that was kind of like a flip for a lot of us to just figure out how to handle. But it is interesting that you say, because this does happen, like, yes, we can be so experienced, we can have lots of experience, but the emotion can still kind of take control sometimes. And because I think it was still, even though you had done a good job and you had experience in that area, I think still you had some firsts, you know, like that, like dealing in the COVID environment, dealing in the sense of like, my plan is this. You're probably used to like, you know, like this is my plan and sticking to it, and then all of a sudden like not being used to like such a drastic change in the plan where it's just like you're having to just do everything. So I feel like there were still, I guess, some firsts that kind of, you know, made the emotional part a lot more. Because I feel like that, like I feel like when we're experienced, when it's things that we've done before, you know, we've already learned those, how to control those emotional parts of us, because we've dealt with, like, let's say the problems of renovating properties or whatever. But when it's like other new things coming up that we're not experienced with, it's in itself, it's actually learning to control our emotions with those new circumstances, I think, right? And like that, I feel like probably going forward, now you've experienced it, you probably, like you said, next time you'll probably think back on that project and think like, okay, let the rational mind like get in front of things instead of allowing, for example, like the emotional mind to just take over. What do you think?
Oh, I totally let my animal brain take over. I should have never sold that property. That property now I could probably get 500 for, and I only bought it for something stupid like 225. And I totally wasn't thinking. I was just so sick and tired of dealing with the property, dealing with the contractor, dealing with the city. And actually, in hindsight, I mean, it's my fault. I didn't have a proper plan. And I know better because I have so many other properties that I know that you have to have a plan for what you're doing with the property. And the plan should have been just to like very lightly renovations, and then make the garage an ADU. But I totally wasn't thinking, because I thought, oh, we're going to move in. But then by the end, I was like, I don't even want to live here anymore. Like, I'm just so sick of it. So I should have turned the whole property into like a little complex, where I rent the top of the house, then the basement I could have probably rented to a student, and then turned the garage into an ADU, and then gone from 1 unit to 3. That would have been the smart thing to do. So the refinance money becomes the money that I turn the garage into an ADU. But what I did was I just sold the whole property because I was just so sick of it. I just had enough, and I didn't want to deal at all with anything. Like, I mean, nothing. By the end, I basically was like, I'm not even going there. Like, yeah. I'll just call somebody to go cut the grass or whatever it was that needed to be done. I don't want to go there, because I had gone from my house there to like work, Home Depot, home hardware for 365 days. I was sick and tired of it. And
you're probably hard, like, one more problem, and I'm going to knock the house down.
Oh, Deanna, you have no idea. I was like having panic attacks. Like, literally one more thing and I'm going to rip my hair out, and something else would happen. And what I think right now is that I understand that real estate agents have to make a living, but I was not given the right advice. I'm sorry to say that, is that I wasn't given the right advice.
Yeah, and that's something that's true, that it's like always I feel like you have to get information from more than one source. Is true, because people just have their agendas, like realtors, their job is to sell properties, and so they're obviously going to sell that, and so it's true, like people, I think that's a hard part, is actually
I don't fault them for it, but when you see someone's at their wit's end and that things haven't gone well, you should maybe kind of caution that client otherwise, as opposed to thinking of just the financial payout.
And it may have been the other way around. Maybe the person did notice, and they were just like, they saw like how stressed you were, like, how bad of a situation it was. They were like, probably like, you know what, just sell it and start fresh. Because sometimes
that was kind of the advice that I was given, is, just dump it and do something else.
Yeah, so it's very hard to tell, and like, yeah, it's always hard to tell, like, people's intentions, or like that, like just what they see. Because I mean, I do know a lot of people are like that, where they prefer, like, they would rather lose money and just start over again than deal with the stresses. Or like people think, like a lot of people think about karma, and then they'll just be like, what, it's just going to be another bad thing, and I'd rather, cut the losses, right? So it's even very hard to read people and decide, is this person going to, like, is it going to make their life a living hell for the rest of their life? or and it's just like might as well let it go, or is it like just a phase right now and they'll get over it, and then things will move on. It's it is so hard also to, even to be honest, in those kind of things, give advice.
Yeah, it's hard for them because that's not their job. They're just real
Hmm.
estate agents. It's hard for them. That's why when you're an investor, you need a real estate agent who's an investor
Hmm.
because they also know what they're telling you right now. And when they tell you, don't do something, you shouldn't do it, or do something, you should do it. So I do agree that there's like different sides of the coin. However, I think that in hindsight, I take responsibility because I didn't have a plan for the property.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and that's a good point. Actually, with the like a realtor that deals with investors. Yeah, because it is that there's so many different points of view, and so that's very true. And so with this, all of this that happened, besides the, let's say, holding it, what other kind of things would you but well, besides keeping it, holding it, and planning? Because I feel like those two, I feel like, are big learning lessons for you that you'll probably, if you have to plan, you'll replan probably a little bit better. And same thing, if problems happen, you'll hold it for, like, you won't just sell it. But any other things that you feel like with this experience that you've gone through that you think you'll change for next time?
I think I would be more vigilant to buy a property that is more current. I know that there's a lot of properties that you can buy and BRRRR. However, sometimes when you buy the older properties, you run into more problems than if you bought one that was a newer property that just needed a little bit of work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Definitely the older homes, you'll see things that are very strange, I feel like, too, especially what we're used to living in. I can tell you one at our Toronto
Yeah.
property, it was really funny. The stairs that go to the main floor, so from the second floor to the main floor, the landing, we don't actually understand how people weren't falling through, because there was a square there, and there was like not really much support. And it was just funny when we saw that, because we were just like, oh my God, we ended up adding a support, because it was just like, you imagine like someone like jumps,
Yeah.
like, like kids will jump or something off the
Yeah.
stairs. I was just surprised that no one fell through, because it was just
Yeah.
like this
Yeah. Like
wall that was quite
there's
big,
so many
and you,
problems and it's so interesting because you're like, how did someone live here?
yeah, yeah.
It's
And you
just
definitely see
even the
how
house that we
amazing.
renovated. Yeah, even the house that we renovated, it was like, how did someone actually live here?
Hmm.
Because there was knob and tube everywhere, and this is not something that when you are buying homes that you have the city that will come out and, you need to be up to code. It's interesting to see how people used to live because it's like, how did you not electrocute yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, now that you brought that up, I did have another question. So when, or not, maybe a question, but another point that you made that I thought would be really good to reiterate was that initially your plans were to move in there, so you were renovating to make the house, something that you would love to live in, which I think is a great point that you make, because living in a house that you love to live in is definitely also a different type of renovation to renovating it to rent it out to others. So I just wanted to make that point, because that is important, because that changes the budget too, right? Because you're obviously going to be wanting to put in extra things that you're going to make sure you enjoy, to have the look and everything, or even like you said, even like you said, right, making sure that all the electrical is done properly, so you're not scared, that you're going to catch on fire, or making sure you have proper ventilation in the house so that every room of the house is, getting the AC or getting the heat. And so I just wanted to make
Yeah.
that point because I
Yeah.
thought it was very,
Yeah.
like, I thought that was a good point that you made.
Oh yeah, 100%. I did do an inspection beforehand. However, it's also a challenge, and sometimes you want to have a bit of a challenge. However, I just don't know if I would undertake something like that again. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
really now happy with the hands off, like passive investing. I feel happier with that. Hands off. Oh, sorry, my phone fell there. Hands off, passive investing. Like, I think I'm so much happier with that now. And maybe in the next year or so, when I feel like, we're really out of the whole COVID thing, I think I would probably do it again, jump in both feet. However, I will be much wiser to have a plan for the property than I did before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also, I feel like that's also sometimes something nice. Basically, you're also saying, take a break, reflect, maybe enjoy some passive money because don't get me wrong, I also love passive money. It's always great, right?
I know
A
you
lot
do.
less stress, right?
I know you do.
And then
We'll
getting
make
back
that
on
our
your feet.
inside joke. That's our inside joke.
Yeah. And I hear you. I'm the same. I find it really interesting when other investors, the amounts that they're investing, like actively working on at the same time, it just like, to be honest, exhausts me just thinking about it. And that's why I love even what you're saying, right? It's basically like
Yeah.
work on an active project, but I can tell you majority of my money is going into the passive because I don't know how people deal with it, but I can't deal with like a million projects going on at the same time. Because like you said, especially like that, like, because the kind of projects we work on are like that. They're huge, big gut jobs. And I feel like whatever it is, it will always be stressful, those big ones. I don't think it will ever go away, to be honest. It's more like, if anything, you just become more tolerant of it, right? Like you know what you're getting into and and that's kind of what it is, but there's always going to be stress involved because it's just like they're
Oh,
huge, big
yeah.
projects with problems. And then so it's like at
Mm,
least have like that passive money on the side doing its job, so then
yeah.
at least you're only stressing on a couple projects instead of like 20 projects.
You know, real estate is kind of a headache. So when you're, an investor, realtor, passive investing, private lending, whatever it is, there's always an element that something's going to go wrong. And for me, something just went wrong, and it's okay. I feel like I've learned a lot of lessons, and I didn't have like a lot of people, they're already seasoned and groomed into this business. I never had that. You
Hmm.
know, for me, it's the other side where people are like, she's going to fail. So it's like I just had to learn on my own. I had to learn as I go, asking other investors, what are they doing?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Especially like that, your support system is important to kind of help you out because if you don't have that, I mean, I feel like that also doesn't help the stress levels.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you don't have anywhere to vent. So I offload onto my friends, and they're just kind of like, stop talking about this, you
Hmm.
know?
And from the sounds of it, real estate is more of like that to create that income for you, that passive income for you to be able to do the things that you really enjoy doing. Right? I feel like it's about in your case, real estate isn't like, let's say, a full-time thing you'll ever get into. It's more of like just buying these properties.
Maybe, maybe in the future, but I love my career, but my career cannot support my life. So I knew that I needed something more. I
Mhm,
needed more.
mhm,
And I wanted to be in control of my own investing. And I knew because I was born into this business But, by the time I started doing it, my parents had sold everything. I knew that when I get married and become a mom, I don't want to work full time. Like my mom didn't work full time, and I think that she gave us a wonderful upbringing. And I know that when I become a mom, that's what I want to do. So you need,
Yeah,
and nowadays you need two working people, unless you're really going to live like very below your means. So I knew that this would just be the right fit.
Yeah, and that's a great point actually, because like that real estate gives you that kind of extra income that, for example, if you want to have time, for example, with your kids, it gives you that, so, and then, but then you can still have, maybe other part-time jobs or whatever, going full-time completely, maybe but it's at least it gives you options,
Yeah.
which is the most
Yeah.
important part.
I think for women, real estate is great because you can make it as part-time and as full-time as you want. And even being a real estate agent, I mean, of course you have to hustle. And I always knew that I needed something more to ensure my future. I just always knew that. And that this was it.
That's
Even though I
awesome.
have a full-time career, I love my career. I mean, my career is wonderful, but I knew that I would need more.
Yeah, that's great. And that's great awareness too. Because a lot of people only think that, I'll just have a full-time job and that's it. And don't think of, okay, something on the side that will give me that extra income for whatever, spending or more time freedom, whatever it may be.
Oh, yeah, before inflation, I won't say, but before inflation, let me tell you, I was making a good spread. Deanna, we've talked a lot. I had a whole nother lifestyle going on. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
inflation put a little damper on that. However, I'm learning more and more strategies on how to be a much more clever and savvy landlord. And I think that is also another pivotal point. If you're going to be an investor that keeps their properties, you need to know how to be a way savvier landlord.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. Especially, I feel like in these times, we're going to see a lot of
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
happening with tenants.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Even
yeah.
if they haven't started already. If they haven't started already, you're probably going to start seeing things soon. And I can't say that doesn't matter like how amazing you are at grabbing, making sure you get the right tenants, but you, like you said, but being a savvy landlord is very important, especially in these times, because even the most amazing tenants, you can see. Oh, sorry. Did you hear me? My phone went off.
Yeah.
But even in the most, in even though you get the most amazing tenants, um, in hard times, like things get hard and things can change drastically. Doesn't matter how amazing those tenants are, and it's like up to us, like you
Yes.
said, to be savvy investors, savvy landlords, and try to make that still easy flow of,
Yes.
like, let's say, whatever it is, is there, it is very true. That's a good point that you brought up. Any final
Mm-hmm.
words that you'd like to let our viewers know?
Yeah, like I think, if you can get into investing, you definitely should try to meet someone who is in that industry, who can, be a mentor for you and learn as much as you can.
100%. Thanks so much, Natasha, for coming on. If you guys loved what you heard from Natasha, follow her. She'll be tagged on this.
Yes.
And if you guys love the shows that I have, definitely follow me. And we'll see you all in the next episode. Bye, Natasha.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
See you soon.
Bye.